Welcome to the Always Better Than Yesterday podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Hartley. This podcast exists to equip and inspire your heart-centered leadership. Every week, we bring interviews with some of the greatest heart sets and mindsets on the planet. I hope the heartprint of our time spent together is that it creates new possibilities for you and all those you come into contact with. If you'd like to explore what we could make possible for you, then head to abty.co.uk/connect and book in a free 30-minute call to begin our journey together. I just want to express a huge amount of gratitude to our sponsors, Exhale Coffee. I have been a big fan of Exhale Coffee since meeting Alex and the team back in 2022. Exhale is the first coffee to be sourced, roasted and lab tested specifically to maximize its antioxidant and anti-inflammatory potency. An independent lab test has shown that 1 cup of Exhale Coffee has the same antioxidant power as 1.8 kilos of blueberries or 55 oranges. I'm a huge fan, and Mrs. H loves the decaf, especially because she knows that Exhale use the mountain water decaffeination process, which uses only pure glacial water from the highest mountain in Mexico and no nasty chemicals. Simply head to exhalecoffee.com/ABTY for your special offer. And lastly, before I introduce this week's guest, please do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It would really help us leave a greater heartprint on this world. On episode 294, what a joy it is to welcome Dr. Robert Glover back to the podcast. Dr. Robert first joined us on episode 255, where he shared all the key concepts from his incredible book, No More Mr. Nice Guy, giving us all the strategies to help men overcome the nice guy syndrome. In today's conversation, we take that to another level. Dr. Robert gives his assessment of the current perspectives and attitude towards masculinity and what men can do to create lasting change for the betterment of themselves and everyone they come into contact with. It's an incredible conversation. It's episode 294 with Dr. Robert Glover. Dr. Robert, welcome back to the Always Better Than Yesterday podcast. How are you, brother?
Ryan, I'm better than I was yesterday. How about that?
That is on brand. If only I got paid £1 every time someone said that.
Yeah, if every time I got paid $1 every time somebody said no more Mr. Nice Guy, you and I both
honestly,
would be rich, right?
100%. Yeah, I'll be over there in Mexico with you. We'll be having our caipirinhas. Yeah,
Margaritas down here, margaritas. And tequila.
Okay. Honestly, the world is a stage right now. There are so many really interesting kind of male characters in the world. You've only got to look aside.
Oh my goodness, my brain starts like fireworks. Like, oh, where are we going to go with this one? Which interesting world character are we going to talk about? Because
right, I'm not one for talking politics on this podcast, but it's really interesting, isn't it, when we're looking to talk about what does it mean to be a man, that we have some very strong characters in the world. I'm not sure any of them are doing the idea of being a man any service, because it's crazy polarity, isn't it? It's crazy archetypes drawing out. Like, what's your observation analysis of masculinity in the world at the moment?
Oh my, we're opening Pandora's box. You know, I'll begin by saying I'm optimistic, actually. Yeah. I think that tends to be my nature no matter what. But, you know, I've been working on me as a man for 30 plus years, which that brought me into the wider world of working with other men around the things men struggle with. And just, you know, being an observer of that on a very interpersonal level, and even on a broader level, you know, kind of with the standing or status I have, you know, and I guess we could call it the worldwide men's movement. I get to talk to a lot of people like you. I get invited to go speak at events, so I'm around a lot of men in different contexts. Seems like no matter what the context it is, whether I'm talking to entrepreneurs, talking around relationships, doesn't matter. It's the same issues. The men that come up and ask me questions, it's the same questions. So it doesn't even matter the context. So I'm optimistic because, let me put it in perspective. 30 plus years ago, when I first started what I'll call my nice guy recovery, I went looking for places to do my work. That's before I even identified myself as a recovering nice guy. I just I just know my second wife had told me if I didn't go get help, she was leaving me. So that's where I started. And I'd read Iron John by Robert Bly, and so I had some concept of the mythopoetic movement, and I found a group to go out in the woods and beat a drum and have a talking stick and say ho. Um, but in terms of seeking out, where do I go get the best help? This is pretty well pre-internet. I mean, it existed, but nobody actually used it for anything but maybe scientific stuff and maybe the early uses of pornography. Um, and so to go find, assistance, help as a man, there just wasn't much there. Now, luckily, I
Mm.
landed in some good places. I landed in a 12-step group for sex addicts. Quickly found out I wasn't having enough sex to be a sex addict, but it was the first time in my life I'd been in a group of men because it was all guys
Yeah.
where I actually got vulnerable and actually just started revealing me, revealing my shame, revealing
Mm.
my thoughts, my impulses, my struggles, and uh, the the only reaction I ever got was, "Thank you for sharing, Robert." I mean, nobody was offended, nobody was
Mm.
disgusted, nobody attacked me, and I thought, "Oh, this feels pretty good." I also got in with a therapist who began working around, just familial issues, my patterns in relationship. Then I landed in a men's group led by a female therapist around sexual shame. I was in that group for 5, 6 years. Also did a lot of work with that therapist, couples work with my wife as well. And that's when I wrote No More Mr. Nice Guy, was while doing that work. And so, but back then, you almost had to just get lucky, word of mouth, to find some place to go connect with men. Um, and nowadays, I mean, it makes me very happy. It makes me smile. I mean, you can't throw a dead cat without hitting a men's coach. They're everywhere, which is good. I do 4 or 5 podcast interviews a week on average, and so there's men out there working with men. So we've got podcasting, we got men's coaches, we got guys leading men's programs. I've been a part of a men's program for years. I go speak at men's programs, and I'm optimistic because we've gone in a really short span. On one hand, we've
Mm.
seen a swing from over here with pretty much a total rejection of what's called patriarchy, right? Swinging all the way to the other extreme that everything about men is evil and bad and toxic. And social media has just been a big megaphone for that. And even mainstream media, it really likes that meme. And so we've gone this far extreme that everything about men is, not even unnecessary, but just toxic. And I see us moving away from that. I think
Mm.
we've kind of gotten tired of that meme, and we're actually seeing that it's not accurate, that there's a lot of good men out there, and we don't actually have to listen to the strident, angry, feminine voices that basically say everything about men is evil. We've kind of gotten tired of hearing those shrill voices. And combine that with the resources that men have to become more conscious, more open-hearted, more aware, more empowered in positive, healthy ways. I see men rising up,
Mm.
not swinging back to some middle ground between, this maybe toxic extreme of patriarchy, toxic extreme of toxic male, let's get rid of all men, because I don't know where the tipping point is between two toxic extremes. So we're not going back to some middle ground. We're going up.
Mm.
And that really excites me because, as I said, I get to do a lot of these kind of interviews. I speak at men's programs, and I just see so many fucking good men out there,
Yeah, come
and
on.
they're hungry. They're seeking answers for the things that perplex them, um, and they're putting it into action. And just more and more the number of, like I say, men's coaches is multiplying,
Mm.
men's programs, men's podcasts, men doing their work.
Mm.
And so I'm optimistic and I'm excited. So can we look around in our world and see, for lack of a better word, toxic extremes of masculinity, extremes of narcissism, perhaps even sociopathic behavior, and even, I'd even say kind of the phase we've gone through, we're still in it, of even bowing at the altar of Navy SEALs. where,
Hmm.
men just flock to, the internet, superpowers, superheroes, telling you how to 10x your business, 10x your life, become a billionaire, get up at 3 a.m. and do your 3-hour workouts. Men just seem to be attracted to that, high performing,
Yeah.
mentality. It sells really well. So the David Goggins and Alex Hermosis of the world, they're doing well. Um, but I actually think we're going to get past that too. And
Yeah.
we're gonna get past, let's, we don't have to chase so much. We don't have to try to outrun our demons. We don't
Mm.
have to make more money, 10x anything, be more successful, date more beautiful, hot women in order to have a meaningful, happy, productive life. So I think, again, we go to extremes, but then, hopefully we rebalance ourselves and then grow from having gone through that swing. We learn this didn't work, but this doesn't work either. We need to go to another plane, not just swing back and forth between the two. So I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know if that answers a question for you or makes
100%.
sense. But again,
It's a
I'm
great start.
optimism. I'm optimistic.
Yeah, it's a great start to the conversation because I think um, I'm not here to make a case and a point for men's work, but more about um, showing what's possible when that happens.
Yeah.
And I'd love to start with the end in mind. So you've got more and more men doing the work than ever before. What should the result be? What is the downstream ripple effect benefit to women, society, families, businesses? What is really the ripple effect of a man becoming a better man?
Well, I'm gonna say I don't know. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
we can only guess, and let me put that in a context as well. Well, we'll get the theoretical things out here first, and then we'll fill in the parts. When I was in grad school, studying to get my doctorate in marriage and family therapy, I was introduced to a concept of first order and second order change. And most of us live in a world of what we call first order change. We think if we do A, then B will happen. If I just, follow this person's program, I'll make my first $1 million. If I
Yeah.
just, get to the gym and do these specific workouts, I'll have my six-pack abs. If I can just get my wife or
Yeah.
girlfriend to, want to have more sex, then life will be good. And so we're always doing A to try to get to B. That's real human nature. And so doing A to get to B often leads us to doing the same damn thing, trying to get different results. And it's kind of, the Einsteinian thing of
Hmm.
a couple of things we attribute to him. One is the thinking that got you into the place you're in that now is not going to get you out of it. And then, of course, the other one that is attributed to Einstein, but I'm not sure he actually said it, is something like, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is definition of insanity. So first order thinking tends to lead to there's got to be an answer. If I can just find the answer, whatever A
Mm.
is,
Mm.
and then I'll get B. And it's really seductive, especially in today's world where we are in information overload. I see millennials, Generation X, especially Gen Z, grown up with more information than anybody's ever had access to at any time. Now let's throw
Mm.
AI into that mix. This morning, I'm working on a lesson on existential angst and freedom. And so I just asked Perplexity, what's existential angst? And got this great answer to existential angst. It's that easy, right?
Mhm.
The information is that easy. So we can get addicted. Well, I'll get more information. There's more information. I'll just go listen to another podcast. I'll listen to another audiobook. I'll do another webinar. I'll go to another, program, thinking that more information is going to solve some kind of problem. It's going to make the A lead to B in exactly the way we want. And unfortunately, oftentimes all that gathering of extra information just adds to the paralysis of analysis. Well, okay, I think this is a good idea, but let me research it a little bit more before I take action. So first order change is we're looking for the right way to do A, so we get B. That probably falls under the kind of the Buddhist statement of attachment to outcome is the cause of all suffering. So I want A to happen. I want B to happen. I got to find the A that leads to B. And Buddha says as soon as we start on that path, we're going to suffer. As soon as we get attached to some specific outcome, we're going to suffer. And guess what? We also become controlling and manipulative and stressed and anxious and often avoidant because Oh, I got to find the right way to do A to get to B. Second order change, on the other hand, is where without a goal or an attachment to a specific outcome, we fundamentally change some aspect of a system in which the system can no longer be the same. It can no longer operate in the same way. Those outcomes are completely unpredictable. And the example that I was given, and this was kind of such a cool example, and it tends to perplex everybody, even the smartest engineers. If you take a baby mobile that, I mean, hangs over a baby's crib, the mobile with the little flowers and the butterflies hanging off some sticks and strings. Nowadays, they're probably all mechanical. You wind them up or push a button and they move. But let's go old school, where it's just some sticks, some strings, and some little flowers, and it's just hanging there. And let's say you tap one of the butterflies. You perturbate the system, is the terminology for it. It's going to start moving, and the flowers and butterflies are going to move. And we hang these over babies' cribs because it teaches them, visual stimulation and hand-eye contact, and it just has all kinds of positive effects. Now, the question that was asked in regard to this illustration is, how do you know where that mobile is going to come to rest? And the engineer types go, well, there's got to be a mathematical formula for it. We put a man on the moon. We should be able to figure this out theoretically. We make it way too complicated. The answer is so simple, it like just kicks us in the head. The answer is, it's going to come to rest exactly where it started. Because it came to rest wherever its structure and gravitational pull brought it to rest previously. So if nothing is actually different about the system when we perturbate it, we get it moving and it looks like something's happening, but it will always come to rest exactly where it came to rest the last time. So actually we can predict with 100% accuracy where it will come to rest. I mean, if there's no other variables besides wind or humidity or right, all that stuff. But if we alter the system in some way, maybe we do change the room temperature, we change the humidity, we add a breeze, a fan to it, maybe we clip off one of the butterflies and perturbate it, we have no fucking clue where it's going to come to rest. Anybody's guess is as good as another guess. That is the difference between first order change, second order change. First order change, we're just doing the same thing, and it's always going to come out the way it came out. And if it didn't, we'll just try another version of the same thing and probably still get something similar. So as a therapist, for example, if a couple walks into my office and they say, here's our problem, help us solve it. And if I jump in and try to help them solve the problem using the same thinking and mentality they've been using, we're just going to perpetuate the problem, right? But what if somehow I alter the system in some fundamental way to where they can no longer see the problem in the same way, function in the same way they've been functioning? So something has to shift. So even if I just maybe, reframe and redefine the problem and actually say, well, maybe this isn't a problem. Maybe the two of you actually co-created this system to be the way it is because you both needed it to be the way. And it's a great portal into looking into your past and your early childhood experiences. And now you've now co-created that with another person. And this person is actually doing you a favor rather than being a hindrance to your happiness. And maybe we work at just putting a different spin, so to speak, on what's happening. Now, they can hang on to their old way of seeing it and just keep doing what they're doing. A lot of people do. But what if they actually entertain that idea that I invited this person into my life because whatever their personal stuff is, it matches something for me that feels normal. And now instead of resenting them for that, I can be grateful to them for bringing that because it's the portal to help me clear out my old stuff that I keep re-inviting into my life. Now, by looking at it differently, everything my partner does is going to look different to me now, and I'm going to respond differently to them. But all of that is unpredictable. We don't know where it's going to end up. So all that to be said, where's this going to end up for all of us? I don't know. But it will be interesting, and I think it will be fundamentally different. I'm already seeing a fundamental difference. I'm seeing a softening, perhaps, in the anger of women against men. Unless you go on TikTok, unless you're in Korea, I guess. The younger generation seems to have to amp this up again. Every generation of young women is all men are scum, all men are this, but that tends to soften over time. And so I'm seeing kind of the softening of all men are scum, all men are evil. I think we're actually seeing that, there's a lot of great men out there who will do a lot of great things. They can be trusted. They're a valuable asset to culture. I see women doing their own work around this as well as they see men doing work around
Mm,
consciousness, open-heartedness, being more present, more aware, more healthily empowered, and women go, oh, I want that. What do I have to do to match that? Rather than just
mm,
think, oh, they should just pick me because I'm me. We actually see people wanting to to level up, men and women both. And so I think as men lead that way, I think women are going, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, there's some jerks out there. I've been hurt, and maybe I've even hurt a few men myself.
mm.
Maybe we're all clumsy lovers. Maybe I can put down some of my guard and some of my venom, and maybe open up to something that scares me, but I deeply want. So I see some shifts happening. There's I think a warming of the freeze that's been going on between men and women. With men doing their incels and MGTOW and red pill and going their way, and women going, they're just everything men do is toxic. And I can't remember what that thing's called where the in Korea where the women are all just, you know, shunning all men. It's big on TikTok. And since
Mm.
Donald Trump gave TikTok 90 more days to exist in America, we can continue to watch those memes on TikTok.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? Thank you for the way that you see the world and sharing that because so much of the first conception we have of what a man is often through the father. And yeah, we're
Sure.
talking about men, but that's also for women as well. Women, young girls grow up to be women who have had a father involved in their life in some way, either
Yeah.
presence or absence. And this I that just for me, just I have two children, 12-year-old and a 9-year-old, and nothing has made me bring into focus the need for me to do my work than for those two human beings that are watching, who receive me as father. And
Yeah.
that sets the context and the purpose for me, keeping my family in a loving state so that we all, and so much of that, even my wife and I, we're fairly conscious, but there seems to be a pull and a narrative to look at outside of the home, outside of the family. There's always a draw away from that which is, depending on your value structure, critically important, where you're irreplaceable. And yeah, there's a lot of pressure out there, and sometimes turning off our phones, unless we're listening to good
Mm.
podcasts like this, sometimes
Yeah.
turning off our phones and speaking to the people very much in front of us is probably the most defiant thing we can probably do.
Well, it's interesting because, yeah, I got smartphone right here. You probably got one here nearby. Mine is on airplane mode while we talk. Um, those things didn't exist 15 years ago.
Yeah.
In a short 15 years, they become such a dominant part of our lives, for good and for bad. I mean, yeah, it's great to have this little mini computer with us everywhere we go. They can serve us well, and
Mm.
mine serves me well. And what I see, I can't even go in and use the bathroom without taking it with me. And I'm not even on social media. So, it's like I'm not in there just doom scrolling on Instagram or, wasting time on YouTube. But they're such a part of our lives. And, you go into any restaurant, coffee shop, whatever, you see a couple or family
Yeah.
sitting around the table. They're all on their own phones. Now, unless they're all playing Words with Friends together, at the same time, they're all off in some other world. And so we have our challenges, you're right. And so we got internet, we got social media, we got 24/7 news cycle, we got Netflix, we've got, you know, streaming video, we got porn, we got capitalism that just keeps trying to grab us and say, come consume, come get more, come spend more. I mean, we've just got all of these things competing for our attention. And guess what? They're all fine-tuned, scientifically based. They know what they're doing.
Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
apps on our iPhone know what the people develop, know what they're doing. The people that create our junk food for us know what they're doing. The people that put stuff on television and streaming media know what they're doing. The people that create porn know what they're doing. They use scientific methods that are proven over and over and over again to capture people's attention and hold on to their attention. And even, the capitalism, buy more, spend more, gotta have the newer thing. Man, I rarely watch television, but the only time I do, and that's not because I'm some holier than thou. I don't turn on I don't know. I don't even know how to turn on the television in our house.
Yeah.
Usually like most people, I'll just, pull up a podcast or an interview or something, but I'll watch sports occasionally. And, I'm watching a game and you're just bombarded with Pizza Hut commercials, Kentucky Fried Chicken commercials, cell phone commercials. How many times do I want to see Patrick Mahomes and Snoop Dogg sell me a cell phone? I don't know if they show those where you are, but they're on TV all the fucking time. I gotta have a new cell phone because Snoop Dogg says I need a new cell phone, right? So that stuff just is out there and is grabbing us. And so, I even make little rules for myself, like put my phone on airplane mode when I get
Yeah.
in bed at night. Don't
Yeah.
take it to the bathroom with me.
Mm.
If I'm with my wife anywhere, if we're sitting at a table together, either in our home or,
Yes.
at the beach or at a restaurant, phone stays in my pocket. Just
Yes.
those little things that just
100%.
let's be in the moment. Let's
I
be
agree
here.
with
Let's
you.
be in the now.
Yeah, I agree with you. Sometimes I'm out with, and I see younger lads, clearly dating, and they'll be just sat on their phones. Both of them be sat on their phones, and there's something
Yeah,
within me that's just
scrolling.
like, shake this young lad, come on, and like devote your time and attention. And I guess there's a fine balance between calling out and having compassion. And I guess
Yeah.
how do we strike that balance? Because I don't think that everyone takes calling out as you know, as an empowering and inspire. Oh,
I,
great,
I,
thanks.
I, I don't. You call me out, I'm going to get defensive. I'm going to say, mind
Right.
your own business, asshole.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, none of us respond well to being called out. And I don't know that if that's any of our job to call other people out.
Yeah.
Um, you know, Maybe compassion and grace are,
Mm.
are, are, are more effective because again, if you think about it, going back to the assertion I made that whether it's the apps on our phone, how the phones are built, how
Hmm.
social media is built, how junk food's made, how, TV commercials are made,
Yeah.
how even shows on television are made. They're all made to capture and hold our attention. They're tying into evolutionary programming that's very powerful. And
Mm.
so when I see like, the young generation Z's just on their phone constantly, you just, scrolling the, social media, just constant.
Yeah.
It's easy to be judgmental of that, um, and blind to the way that we do similar things. Like I'll be sitting and reading a book. I love to read, and I actually read. A lot of people when they say, I read a book," they actually listen to it, right? I'm a big fan of actually reading, but
Yeah.
even then, I do it on a Kindle. So I'm on my Kindle reader, and I'm reading like a great book, great fiction book, and I'm reading. And I'll pause about every 5 to 10 minutes reading to pick my phone up and just look, is there any new sports information, on my sports app since the last time?
Since I
No,
last
nothing.
checked 10 minutes ago.
I can't even sit and read my book,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
10 to 20 minutes without stopping to check anything new on my phone. So I can't judge anybody. We're,
Yeah.
we're, we're hooked on this stuff. And it's okay. It's been built to hook us. And so we need compassion for ourselves and
Mm.
compassion for each other. I mean, we all need some grace in this world because if you even spend much time on the internet and social media, there's so little compassion and grace out there. It's all judgment, it's all narcissist that, borderline that, sociopath that, men are this, women are that. Fuck, let's give ourselves a little grace. We need
Yeah.
it. We're human.
Well, it's powerful, isn't it? And I think that sets in context the power of doing this work. The power of our own example. Can't go around pointing fingers at anybody else. Just it's like continuing to do our own work. And there's a big, powerful word on the middle of your chest right now. It says integration. And
Yeah.
I just what is it
That's
that
product placement, by the way. I'm
Oh, it's
advertising
good,
you.
isn't it? Yeah, it's good. Yeah, yeah. No, it's good. For those of you that are listening on the podcast, it says Integration Nation, Good Men Doing Better. It's your flagship men's program. What?
Thanks for that plug.
Yeah, good. That's what I'm here for. I want more people getting involved in doing your work, and because the world, I believe, gets better. When men get better, everything around them gets better. They become
I agree.
I think so. I have a Christian faith, and unfortunately, many interpret the word dominion as a domination, and I believe that that word dominion means I'm a steward, and it means I look after and I protect and I care for everything that I've been entrusted within my
Hmm.
presence and my leadership. Doesn't mean ownership; it means empowerment and protection, and that's a fine balance, because what you said earlier is the fine balance between protection and control, and the shadow that can create, the dominion
Oh yeah.
shadow, which is about
Oh yeah.
manipulation and control. So it's really interesting listening very intently to your views on that. But what are the aspects of a man's self that he has to be able to integrate?
And that word integration, I like it. And the more I even dive into it, the more nuanced and the more, just layers to it, I find. Because for example, when I wrote initial text for No More Mr. Nice Guy, so we're talking 25 years ago. Um, I remember I thought I'd pretty much finished the book, and I sent it off to a professional editor, and he said, "You're about halfway done." I thought, "Oh fuck," um, and he said, "Number one, it's a little bit redundant. There's too many illustrations. Your reader doesn't need to know everything you know in order to make a change." And I go, "Oh, that's
Hmm.
actually good information."
Okay.
So if I published everything that was in the book, it would have been like that thick. For people
Life's
listening,
work. Yeah.
my fingers are about 2 inches apart. If I hold them closer to the camera, it's even bigger, or maybe it's even closer. I don't know. I'm not a physicist. Anyway, so I edited it, and then he also said, "Well, you need to tell people what to do. You're telling them what not to do. Don't be a nice guy." There
And
you
now it's
go.
that thick. Yeah,
That was that thick, right? Yeah.
yeah.
So in comparison, that thick to that thick, right?
Yeah.
So and so I thought, well, I said, I'm a therapist. I can't tell people what to do. And he goes, it's a self-help book. You have to tell them what to do. So that's where the 50-something breaking free activities came from
Mhm,
in there.
mhm,
Now, he also said, okay, you're telling them basically what to move away from being a nice guy. What are they moving towards? What are they
mhm,
becoming? And I thought, okay, that's a good question. And so, I played with the idea, and, there's no right answer to that one. I realized that we could say becoming a conscious man, authentic man, empowered man. And I went with integrated.
mm,
And to me, integration is the ability to bring in, parts of who we are, both,
mm,
the stuff that's in the light that we're proud of and we like people to
mhm,
see, and the stuff that's in the dark that maybe we don't even go look at. I remember years ago when I was married to my second wife, and I don't remember what the context was. I was probably being manipulative in some way. I remember we were lying in bed, and I asked her, I said, if you could do anything and there'd be no consequence for it, you wouldn't get caught, nope, nothing, what would you do? She goes, well, I'm not going to answer that, but what would you do? And she was smart in that way. And and so she turned it back on me, and without really even having to ponder it, I'd say, I think I'd take a look at my dark side. Now,
mm.
I didn't say I would go into my dark side.
Yeah.
I just said maybe I'll take a look at it because it kind of fucking scares me to think what is in there.
Yeah.
And okay, so fast forward a few years later, I had a relationship end several years ago. Um, about 12 years ago or so. And it ended badly because of me. Right. And I felt really bad. I really hurt the person that, yeah, they had their issues, but they shouldn't have had to experience the pain I put them through for the
Mhm,
relationship to end. And I felt bad. I felt bad about it for quite some time because I thought I can do better than that. I know better than that. I've done it before, and I thought I'd, figured that one out. And I was talking with a really good friend of mine who's a psychologist who knows me well. And I think he got tired of hearing me say, I just don't understand how I could behave in that way. I just, it's not what I believe. It's not what I teach. I acted badly. I hurt somebody and I feel bad. And so after a while, just maybe listening very well, um, he said, Robert, he says, here it is. He held up one hand. He says, you can be a dick. Now, he knew me well enough to say that and know that he could get away with saying it. I'd
mhm.
hear him. You can be a dick. Then he held up his other hand. He said, but you're not a dick.
Mm,
He says, when you can integrate those two things, you'll
mhm,
not only understand how you could act in that way,
mhm,
you'll get answers and you'll find freedom.
mm,
And he said, and you'll be a less dickish person. And I go, you're right. How simple is that? So that's
Mm,
what integration is. How
mm,
do we take those parts of ourselves that either we keep hidden, we don't let other people see, whether it's a hidden secretive behavior like looking at porn or flirting with, your secretary when you're married, or, just having even just impulses. Maybe these impulses we don't even know about. We don't even let ourselves see. And that's really what, for example, what make nice guys
mm,
really not so nice is we're so out of touch with what we've repressed. But like they say in 12-step programs, what you repress gets expressed. It's
mm,
going to leak out somewhere. If we push it down, that pressure cooker is going to push it out the weak spots, the gaps somewhere. So
mm,
if we can do a conscious look at our shadow, at our dark side, at our dickishness, at our inner asshole, our inner killer, our inner pervert, our inner narcissist. If we can go look at those things and bring them into the light of day, share them with safe people, a coach, a therapist, our men's group, write
mm,
about them in our journal, put them out here where we can see them. Now all of a sudden they become integrated in that we're not trying to hide them from ourselves or others. And when
mm,
those impulses arise, we can actually go, oh, look, I'm having an impulse that, I don't really like being controlling in that way. I don't really like being, snarky in that way, or I don't really like having that hidden sexual impulse. I'm
mm.
gonna, but I'm gonna look at it and I'm gonna ask myself, as a wise therapist did one time when I told her about a dark sexual impulse I had. I'd not acted on, but I told her about it, and she kind of looked at me lovingly and said, "Well, let's explore what that's about."
Mm,
If we're in the process of integration, we can go explore what it's about. What
mhm.
story is it telling us?
Yeah.
So that's where the integration comes in, to take our spiritual and material side, bring them together.
Mm, mm,
You say you have a Christian faith, and I grew up in fundamental Christianity. I have 2 degrees in religion. I was a minister
mhm,
for 8 years,
mhm,
and I grew up in a faith though that basically said just repress and hide everything,
mhm, mhm,
and just saw everything that material is sinful. But that doesn't help people. How we have to be able to integrate the spiritual side of ourselves with the material side of ourselves. And so,
mhm,
for example, in Christianity, there's often this message around, the evils of sexuality. And it's interesting how many preachers will preach about the evils of sexuality, and okay, I better hide it, better repress it.
mm.
But think about it. If your faith is God created human in his own form, he made us sexual people. And so apparently that's a good
Yeah.
thing,
There's
right?
some interesting stuff in Song of Songs.
Oh yeah. I mean, it gets, pretty kinky and sexy and, at least R-rated. And think about it. I'll ask my religious friends, I'll say, all right, what was the very first commandment that God gave to Adam and Eve? And they'll go, oh, don't eat the apple or eat the fruit of good. And I go, no, actually not. The very first, shocker alert for people listening. The very first thing God told Adam and Eve was go fuck a lot. Now, the translators of the Old Testament translate that, be fruitful and multiply.
Yeah.
So God told Adam and Eve, go have a lot of sex.
Yeah.
And we're going, sex is evil? That's
Yeah.
the first commandment God gave to man and women. Go have a lot of sex. Fast
Divine
forward to,
Union.
yeah, in the new, yeah, but we have to call it divine union. So we even have to make it somehow divine, not base or toxic. If it comes from God, it's not base or toxic, right? And so if you even go and, all right, fast forward New Testament, I'll challenge my Christian friends. Go find an example in the Gospels of where Jesus condemned one person for having sex. Now remember, he hung out with prostitutes. He hung out with people caught in the very act of adultery. He hung out with the lowest, basest people. And there's not one condemnation of a person for having sex in the Gospels from the lips of Jesus. You have to get to the Apostle Paul to get into all that good stuff. All right. So Jesus did not condemn anyone for having sex. Now I'm not promoting, an unconscious, uncaring,
Mhm.
sexuality, but what I'm saying is it, culturally, religiously, it's so easy to think I got to hide and repress things about myself that might not play well, might not go over well with family, friends, colleagues, church mates, stuff like that. But the more we hide and repress, the more it is going to find an expression. And that's why often, for example, fundamental Christians have, some of the highest rates of porn use. They're secretly, that sex drive's a strong drive. Well, I can't let that be real visible or express it real openly, but it's got to go somewhere. And so it goes into the dark way. And I know I'm going to misquote this, but Jordan Peterson has a quote. And he says something like, um, a good man isn't the man who's like repressed everything. The good man is the man who's fully in touch with, his potential to be a killer or something like that. But
Mm.
he has that under control. He knows
Yeah.
it's there, but he knows how to manage it. So just repressing who we are does not make us good people, does not make us, it doesn't, we don't get to hang our hat on anything and we don't get rewards in heaven for having repressed anything. What we actually can look at and own and integrate into our value system, into the way we live our life, that's powerful. That's
Yeah.
integration.
Yeah. Because it's either controlling us or we're controlling it. It's that source. Where is that source of power? Is it over us or is it in us and through us? And there are a couple of courses on your website where I'm really intrigued. Actually, I've not really thought about it from this perspective, but nice guys are everywhere, right? They're in the home, they're in relationships, but they also go to work. And when I was probably my least serving of my family was when I was in middle management. I was off at work, trying to give the best of myself to the workplace, and the family just got the rest of me, whatever was left. If I certainly wasn't, the person they needed me to be, shall we say. And there are many, many, many men out there that are nice guys doing the same. They're off into management. They're seeking things in the world, putting best self forward, hiding aspects of themselves. How do we encourage, recovering nice guys within the workplace to really step into, leadership really, rather than rotting in middle management, as you would say?
Yeah, and of course you're referring to my online course on nice guys don't finish last, they rot in middle management. Thank you for that
Hmm.
other product placement.
Good.
Um, you know, I was talking with somebody just yesterday. A friend of mine asked me to come speak to his online men's program, and somebody asked me about that same question from a very personal point of view. He says, he said my relationships seem to be okay. With my fiance, I think he said seems to be pretty good. I don't tend to show up so much as a nice guy there, but at work I'm underperforming, and it is interesting when it comes to nice guys. Some nice guys are just like they manifest the nice guy syndrome everywhere. Relationship, work, friendships are codependent. They go along to get along. They avoid conflict. They sacrifice their own needs and wants. They fail to have boundaries. But so it can be different. Some people like I've had some women report to me, yeah, yeah, my husband's a nice guy to everybody but me. He's not nice to me at home.
Yep.
And then we have nice guys that are such nice guys in the home. I mean, maybe they're more integrated at home, but they underperform at work. They leave
Mm.
too much on the table. I counseled with one woman years and years and years ago, and saw her husband a couple times. But she'd met her husband when she was a dispatcher for a police department, and her husband was a policeman. That's how they met.
Mhm.
And so she fell in love with the cop, the guy in the uniform, you know. And so they dated and ended up getting married, and she left that job as the dispatcher. And she said, but something shifted. Now she only got to see her husband when he came home from work, took off his uniform, took off his gun, took off his badge, took off, all the gear. And she goes, and he changed. He turned
Mm.
into this passive pleasing, couldn't make a decision, wouldn't tell me what to do. I had to make all the decisions. And she said, I had to go with him on ride alongs in his cop car to see the man I fell in love with. Because when he put the
Mm.
uniform back on, he performed at that high level that she found so attractive. So this can
Mm.
show up in a lot of different ways. So in the workplace, yeah, in the course that I actually wrote that course 20 plus years ago, and then
Yeah.
a few years back put it into a video form. But as I've applied it to myself as an entrepreneur, I mean, I haven't gotten a paycheck since 1988. So I was an entrepreneur before people used the word entrepreneur. And I was a
Yeah. Yeah.
digital nomad before people used the word digital nomad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Moving to Mexico and, when COVID hit, my life didn't change. I was already just, working on my computer from home anyway. So what I found is as I've addressed my nice guy stuff in my own work as my own boss, I've gotten so much more productive, gotten
Mm.
a bigger world reach. I've created more. I've made a bigger difference in the people around me.
Yep.
And some of the things that for nice guys that tend to get in the way at work, this is probably it shows up in a number of ways. One is just our codependent behavior. And that's what nice guy syndrome is codependency. I did not use that term in No More Mr. Nice Guy intentionally
Hmm.
because I didn't want to use the word because at that time the word is pretty much only used, it came out of addiction studies. It was a person who was co-addicted to the addict. So we got a drug addict or alcoholic and their partner who's trying to manage them by either enabling it or trying to get them to quit. That was called the co-addict or the codependent. That
Hmm.
then began to be applied quite a bit to women because that's usually how it showed up in the early view of it. It was women trying to get their alcoholic husbands to quit drinking. They were codependent. So I didn't want to use that term, but it is what it is. Now, an even better term for codependency, in my mind, is something called borrowed functioning. And that means I need something outside of me that I
Mm.
borrow from a
Mm.
situation, a person, a relationship to give me my sense of identity or value. Okay. So, say if I get identity or value by being the helper, by being the fixer. Well, I
Mm.
need people in situations outside of me that need help or need fixed. Or if I get my identity or value from having an attractive wife or a dog that everybody loves or whatever, that's borrowed functioning. And it's very fragile and it doesn't really serve. So a
Mm.
lot of guys get into the workplace and they get their borrowed functioning. They get their identity from, oh, if I get praise, if I succeed, if I get promoted, or if I help out the teammate get their work done, but then I got to take my work home on the weekend. So a lot of time getting caught up in that codependent, I get value because I'm the fixer, I'm the helper,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
problem solver. You don't focus on often your own task in front of you, the thing that most needs done. You'll
Yeah.
probably procrastinate. You'll go find, oh, I'll go help that other person for a while. Or, if our boss comes, on Friday night and says, I need this done by Monday. And we go,
Mm.
oh, I want his approval. I don't want him upset at me. I'll take it home with me. I'll work all weekend, neglect my family. That's still borrowed functioning. It's like, oh, I want to be well thought of. I want to get approval. I want kudos. I want to impress him. And believe it or not, all those things work against us.
Yeah.
When I was in private practice back in the Seattle area, so Microsoft had 40,000 people there. Amazon was growing. Boeing was there. I mean, just a lot of like tech and engineering type companies. So I had a lot of men and and especially at that time at Microsoft, because Bill Gates famously stated for the first 7 years of the company, he never took a day off. So that was the culture of Microsoft, right?
Yeah.
You took a breath. You must have been in tech
Yeah.
culture at some point. And,
I was in
a lot of
policing.
other, pardon?
I was in policing. Similar.
Oh, okay. So that was the culture there. Microsoft would, they'd stock refrigerators with Red Bull and colas and Mountain Dew and bring in pizzas. They wanted people working all day and all night.
Mm.
And so, that was part of the men I was working with. And so I started talking with them what I call about managing up. Instead of just, thinking I got to do everything management says, they say Friday night, we got this have to be done by Monday. We go along to get along. But like I tell people, most people don't quit bad jobs, they quit bad managers.
Yeah.
And most people in management didn't get into management because they were good managers. They got into management because they were good at something else. Maybe they're good at sales. So let's make him a sales manager. Maybe he sucks at being a sales manager, but we can't put him back in sales. So we just leave him there or put him in a parallel move in another department to be somebody else's problem. Yeah. Yeah. For those of you listening on Spotify, he's nodding his head. Yeah.
I know that.
I
Yeah.
know that.
Promoted to levels beyond just one level beyond our competence.
Yeah. What's the principle, Peter principle, that we all rise to our basic level of incompetence.
Yeah.
So all of that happens in the work world. So we have to manage up. And so I started asking managers who were like in my men's group, guys above middle management even. I said, what would you do if you had an employee that came to you and said, I need your help. I need your help because I want to be your best damn employee. I'm going to show up. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to be conscious. and I'm going to come on time and I'm going to leave on time. I won't be looking at YouTube, during work hours, but I'm not going to work late unless it's, a rare emergency. I'm going to go home. I'm going to come back and work hard for you. I'm going to communicate with you. I'm going to ask you for clarity. What are your
Mm.
priorities? What's most important that gets done? But I need you to work with me, to communicate with me well, and blah 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 blah. Manage up. And so I've asked managers, what would you do if you had an employee come and say something like that to you?
Mm.
Their eyes all got big and say, I want a whole team of people like that. Not one of them said, I'd fire his ass for telling me he wasn't going to work all weekend long,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Not one said that. Now,
yeah.
maybe they do, but not one man said I'd fire his ass. He said he wants to be my best damn employee. He's going to be conscious. He's going to show up. He's going to demand clear communication of me, to get things done and have priorities. The guys go, I want that. I want that.
Yeah.
So that's where how I work with men in terms of the workplace. So we have to overcome that codependency that says, "Oh,
Yeah.
I'll get value by fixing other people's problem." We have to get proactive and measure up. The other thing is we got to be willing to rock the boat. People listen. How many meetings have you sat in while somebody's talking about stuff and you're going, number one, we've talked about it 1,000 times. Number two, it's not going to work. From an engineering point of view, it won't work. From a marketing point of view, it won't work. But you just keep it. You don't want to
Mm.
rock the boat. You don't want to
Mm.
stand out. And so, but somebody else, steps up and says something, and they get the promotion. But the nice guy's going, well, I don't want to say something wrong. I don't want to, I don't want to get fired. But you know what? Pretty much every successful person I've ever talked to or listened to
Mm.
has gotten fired more than once, or has either failed at their own idea more than once. But the nice guy is so risk adverse. We don't want to take that chance of rocking the boat, upsetting anybody, losing a job, having people mad at us, making a
Mm.
mistake, looking foolish. So it's that playing safe that leads to mediocrity. Maybe
Mm.
nice guys are good at being good, but often not great at being great. So, we're conscientious enough, like I say, to kind of make it up to middle management. No negative connotation of middle management, but that's where we tend to get stuck because that's where our glass ceiling is, whether it's around our codependency, our self-limiting beliefs. Who am I
Yeah.
to be a director, a general manager, a VP? Who am I to be the CEO? Who am I to rise to the top? I mean, I struggle with those self-limiting
Mm.
beliefs. So our codependency,
Yeah.
our avoidance of conflict, our fear of risk, all of those things enter into the mix. But hey, what a beautiful place to go to work on this stuff.
Well, I think what it all comes down to is that man builds his life around comfort, not seeking discomfort, building everything around comfort.
Maybe
And I
maybe
think
comfort and approval.
comfort and approval, say yeah, some form of
Yeah,
safety, and I think
yeah.
over time, though that environment doesn't serve those around him. I think that's a lot of self-serving behaviors. Addictive behaviors can creep in because it's a. I think I spoke with Dr. John Gray, and I think he talked about how a man that's too comfortable and enjoying the pleasures of the world has a higher amount of estrogen placed in his body, which is the source of addictions. So that's interesting to think about.
I never heard that direct connection that estrogen is the source of
Pleasure.
addictions. Yeah, and it makes sense there's a pleasure. And when I talk energetically about masculine and feminine, I do think in terms of the feminine part of us is
Mm,
the part that experiences the world through our senses,
yeah.
whether that's pain or pleasure. And so, you know, so even, yeah, just that feminizing effect. One thing that I say, for example, this isn't a very popular statement, but I say that I think social media is fundamentally feminizing of men. So I'll ask guys, how optimistic do you feel after doom scrolling on Instagram?
Yep.
How more productive are you after you've watched 3 or 4 hours of YouTube videos?
Gossiping.
How much better do you feel about yourself and how much more energized and productive? How much
Mm.
more do you get done based on how much time you look at social media?
Yeah.
And I think it's feminizing for many ways. Number one, it just pushes stuff to us. It's easy. There's no work to be done at all on social media.
Mm.
We can spend hours just moving our finger. That's all we have to do is move our finger across the screen.
Yeah. Eliminating
And
the chase.
and yeah, there's nothing demanded or required at us. We don't have to get masterful at anything. And it's through getting masterful at things that I believe, especially the masculine part of ourselves, men or women, getting masterful is internally validating. Seeking approval or validation is the feminine part of ourself. And so the feminine is externally validated through approval, desire, attention. And so social media, oh, look, I got some likes, I got some hits. I've got this many followers, I've got this many subscribers, you know, oh, this person, commented, that's all very feminine because it's all external validation. Now, if you built a really kick-ass Instagram channel and you're really, it's really working for you, that's masculine, right? But that's not how, most people are out there using social media. They're not using it so much from the creator point of view. And maybe a lot of
Mm,
people do, but a lot of people are the consumer, and that's
yeah.
feminine.
Super conscious of your time. I didn't get the opportunity to talk to you about your course all the way in leading your relationship with love. So maybe my final question to you, Robert, will be: what's the number one thing the men listening can do to start leading their relationship with love? What's the most practical thing that the men listening can do to start going all the way in and leading their relationship with love?
Okay. Let's just go with maybe I say the most practical. Learn to soothe your anxiety.
Hmm.
That may not make sense, but the way I approach that course, the all the way in course, is that I tell the man, I'm going to say it's your default role to be the leader. That doesn't mean you take control, make all the decisions, blah, blah, blah. But it is, I think, to set the emotional tone of the relationship, provide that kind of leadership. And there's one thing about us humans, and it's true for any pack animals. I mean, Nala's outside my door again. She's been barking a bunch. Okay. Something has triggered an anxiety state in my dog. Maybe it's a cat. Maybe it's the birds that come eat her food out back that she doesn't like. Maybe it's some sound she heard. Something triggers her anxiety states. And I'll notice, I mean, there's dogs all over my neighborhood. All it takes is one dog to get into barking at something, other dogs start barking. They don't know what they're barking about, but they have an anxiety response. Okay, this is built into pack, herd, tribe, flock kind of animals. Birds on a wire. There's a bunch of birds on a telephone wire. One gets startled. They all do a startle response. Okay, this is because we have what's called mirror neurons in our brain. And so they've done studies with little babies. If a mom looks into the baby's eyes and smiles at the baby and is calm and relaxed, the baby smiles back and is calm and relaxed. But if the mom looks in the baby's eyes and is stressed and anxious and frowning, the baby gets stressed and anxious and responds. That's wired into us for good reason, right? Because if there's a threat to the tribe, if there's threat nearby, hungry tiger, a stranger, whatever, one person's anxiety response is read by the others. And even between dogs and humans, we've coexisted for so long. Dogs pick up on our anxiety. Nala knows when my wife and I are fighting. She'll come get right in the middle of us to distract our attention. Little children do that in parents' relationships as well, though they become distracting. It's an anxiety response. So
Mm.
anxiety is contagious between humans and our close animals. Anxiety is contagious because of those mirror neurons. Now, that's a good thing in terms of our long-term survival as a species. The more people that can get anxious and react to a potential threat, the more likely we are to deal with that threat well. Now, unfortunately, we get anxious about all kinds of things that aren't really threats to our well-being. And so we're often, I mean, even the stuff we worry about makes us anxious, right? Stuff that may never happen, stuff that happened in the past. That makes us anxious. And if we're anxious around other people, they will feel our anxiety and they'll get anxious too. They won't know why, but they will. It's contagious. Calm is contagious as well.
Mm.
Just like the mom that looks in the baby's eyes with calm and smiles, the baby is calmed and smiles. So as a marriage therapist, that's my basic training and what I did for 25, 30 years. Most of the problems that couples come to, when they come to see a marriage therapist, and there's an axiom in marriage therapy, whatever the couple's fighting about isn't the real problem they're fighting about. Right? There's something else going on underneath that. And they've just found a thing to fight about. So even if we just take the thing they're fighting about, if we can get one person, just one, to be more relaxed, calm, be more grounded, have their feet on the floor, sit up straighter, breathe more relaxed, diaphragmatic breathing. If we can get one person out of their sympathetic nervous system, but that's the fight, flight, freeze, threat, right? Into parasympathetic nervous system, which is relaxed. if you're in sympathetic nervous system, it narrows your actual visual field and the way you think about things. You're meant to just find a solution to threat, right? And you don't want an open field of vision. You want a narrow field of vision. But when we're relaxed, we want an open field of vision that takes in everything around us, right? And is more responsive, not reactive. So the one thing that I would teach a couple is how to self-soothe. Unfortunately, I mean, babies do it. They learn to do it on their own, but most of us, we do what I call anxiety management rather than soothing. Anxiety management is typically where either we avoid a situation, we medicate it with drugs or alcohol or food or TV, or we try to fix or get the other person to change and quit doing what they're doing. That first order stuff we started with. Second order is, all right, if one person can just soothe themselves, relax a little bit, that calm is contagious. And now all of a sudden it shifts the system between everybody involved. And maybe there's different perspective. There's a wider plane of vision, of thought, of ideas, of processes. So that would be my number one thing. I'd tell men, all right, let's work on you learning to soothe yourself and learn how to, following that Viktor Frankl model, that, in that moment between stimulus and response, we can choose if we're going to respond or react. Reaction is lizard brain, anxiety-based. Response is self-soothing, calm-based, rational-based. And so that'd be where I'd start. Let's learn to soothe ourselves.
Love that. What's your most recent offering? What's the latest thing that people can search out and get involved in?
Oh, look, Integration Nation. Yeah,
Come on.
As my men's membership program, I'm a big fan and advocate that men do their best in community. It's wired into us from an evolutionary point of view, being part of a tribe, hunter-gatherer warriors. We just do our best. So I'm for many years now, I've been building community for men, whether it's in my home, small groups, bigger programs, courses I teach, and now my men's membership program. So Integration Nation at integrationnation.net is one of the things I'm trying to do to help men level up and be the best version of themselves.
Love it. Dr. Robert, thank you so much for all the work you're doing. Thank you for coming and spending time with us again on the podcast. We appreciate it.
Right. Appreciate the other invitation. Next time you hit another big milestone in your podcast, invite me back.
Thank you, brother. Hey, my friends, thank you for making it to the end. I hope that our time spent together today has left you a little bit better than before you push play. I'd really appreciate if you just took a moment to leave a review to allow me to meet more people where they are and hopefully leave them a little bit better too. If you're curious to know how I, through Always Better Than Yesterday, can serve you, your team, your organisation, then head to alwaysbetterthanyesterday.com to connect. And while you're there, let me know one or two things that you're going to do as a result of listening to this conversation. I absolutely love hearing your thoughts, your reflections, and the things that this spark in your own heart and mind. If you want more insights from my heart and mind, I do send out short episodes on a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday and Friday, and again, I hope that they serve you well. I appreciate you listening. I'm Ryan Hartley, host of the Always Better Than Yesterday podcast, a podcast for heart-centered leaders just like you. Keep leading, my friends. Always love.